Hi everyone, and welcome along to the Digital Culture Ideas Show. This is the YouTube and podcast show where I talk about the impact of technology and the internet on our personal lives, our work, how we communicate, behave, and even make decisions. I'm Hilary Walton, your host. So today's topic is going to be on the frontier firm and how it really changes work. The frontier firm is a term that Microsoft coined in November last year to really capture this new type of organization that we're seeing as technology and AI and agents actually become real. We'll get into more about that research in a second. But the reason why I think it's quite pertinent to talk to you about it at this time is when I was talking to business leaders and CEOs, people outside of Microsoft, actually, they're not so familiar with this term. So I thought, okay, well, how about we do a bit of a video to really break that down? So I'm going to go through some of the research from the Work Trend Index, which is a report that Microsoft put out on an annual basis, and in particular from the November 2025 report. Let me share my screen and we will get into it. Awesome. Okay, so here's a look at what the cover of the report looks like here. I've also got the link there for you, which I'll put in the show notes as well, because it is definitely worth a read. But basically, this is an annual work trend report that Microsoft put out. To kind of put this together, they do a bunch of research with independent researchers doing it on their behalf. But they look at some qualitative insights. So, they're speaking to economists, futurists, scientists, academics, and even customers to understand their goals and challenges and the current state of this AI adoption thing. They also have a survey methodology, and they go out and they surveyed 31,000 full-time and self-employed knowledge workers across 31 markets. So that's a whole bunch of different countries over the world. They also look at Microsoft telemetry data, which is kind of interesting. It's all aggregated and anonymized, but this is the signals that Microsoft M365 picks up, which is the productivity tool. So, when they're looking at those signals, they're really thinking about how often are employees getting interrupted? What about those last minute changes to PowerPoints that people do? When did they occur? And, they've found out things that it's occurring like in the last 10 minutes before someone enters a meeting. What about ad hoc meetings? Like, are they meetings mostly scheduled or unscheduled? And they find that 60% are actually unscheduled. After hours chats, how many of those are going on? What about late night meetings and cross time zone meetings as well? And then they also, because they own LinkedIn, they're able to use the LinkedIn hiring and labor trends. And so what they did here is they specifically looked at AI startup talent trend analysis and explored global workforce and talent trends among AI startups. Okay, so that's the kind of setup for how they put the research together. Let's get into it. Okay, so one of the main premises, and this is a bit of a summary slide here, but basically by 2020-30, the company that you lead will be not just autonomous, but driven by predictive intelligence. They're seeing in 2030, agents will be the best sellers in your company, producing multimodal, hyper-persistent, personalized experiences grounded in enterprise data and context. Your workforce is going to be empowered to be fully human. So humans are at the soul of your brand. This is where, skills like curiosity, EQ, intelligence, and creativity matter as much as code. And then lastly, there's a piece here around not fearing change, but designing and accelerating it with AI. So you need to be thinking about your business model, what your organization looks like, your workforce for constant reinvention and innovation to keep up with this, rate of change that, we talk about a lot in terms of AI. Okay, so aspiring to be frontier. What is a frontier firm? So basically, it's a company powered by intelligence on tap. There are human agent teams, and there's a new role for everyone, which is this role of agent boss, the report says, but basically an agent manager. So humans will be orchestrating agents to get the work done. The term frontier, obviously, it's sort of harks back to, the early Americans, out on the frontier. That's kind of where it comes from, but it's that really bold, curious, really future-facing companies and people in this case. Those are the frontier firms. Here's a little bit more about what some of the characteristics are. So it definitely blends that human leadership with AI-powered agents. They talk about intelligence on tap, and that's really just treating AI as that really scalable utility, much like cloud computing, to boost productivity, agility, and innovation. It's AI operated, but human-led. That's a really central part. And so the human sets the strategy, makes the judgment calls, and provides oversight. So work begins and ends with the human, but there might be a bunch of agents in between who are getting it done. Hybrid teams, and I don't just mean between different cities, but between human and agent teams are a thing. So agents act as digital colleagues, digital workers, and sometimes even autonomous. It's really got a dynamic work structure. So gone will be the traditional organizational structure with its different silos of marketing, HR, security, IT, and much more moving towards this idea of work charts. And we'll go into what that kind of really means. And then lastly, it's about having an agent manager mindset. So every employee becomes an agent manager, managing and collaborating with agents, and there's a new skill set and mindset involved in that. So you'll notice some new terms. Let's kind of break those down a little further for you. So agent, what is an agent, Hils? Well, an AI-powered system that can reason, plan, and act to complete tasks or even entire workflows autonomously with human oversight at times. Agent boss or agent manager, that's a human manager with one or more agents that they're managing. The report also talks about this new term of digital labor. So AI or agents that can be purchased on demand to scale workforce capacity. So basically, AI agents are a lot like normal employees. They need to be onboarded and offboarded, and they do pieces of work, but they're a digital labor. The report also talks about the importance of thinking about your human to agent ratio. So how many agents is optimal for a human to manage at one time in your business? So it's kind of like a new business metric that optimizes the balance of human oversight with agent efficiency. Intelligent resources is a new thing. So think of this as a function dedicated to managing digital labor, or an organizational level. It's basically what we think of as the HR and the IT team, except in this case, they're smashed together. So the reason for that is that just as an employee needs to be onboarded, has a life cycle, and then is offboarded, agents need to have that same thing happen. But when you're managing digital assets, there's very much a technology part of that. And so we're seeing HR and IT teams come together, which is pretty exciting. Lastly, work chart. So this is the next generation org chart. It's not structured around functional expertise, marketing, HR, security, but around jobs that need to get done. The other thing that the report talks about is this kind of maturity journey that organizations are on. So you start in phase one. It's probably where a lot of organizations actually are currently. So this is your human with an AI assistant. So this is, an individual working with their chat AI, working with their co-pilot, for example. The next phase is when you actually have human-led agents. So agents join teams as digital colleagues, taking on specific tasks at human direction. So you can think of this like if you've experienced a facilitator in Microsoft Teams, that is an agent joining a team to help the team run more effectively. It's doing a task on behalf of the team. That is phase two. So agents join teams as digital colleagues, taking on specific tasks at human direction. Phase three, this is where the human sets the direction and agents run the entire department or the entire business process and workflows. Then the human is kind of checking on the agent from time to time. So the human might have 5 different agents running at one time, and then they're directing those agents, saying when they've completed their thing, reviewing the output from the agent, is it good enough, or do they have to send it back? So that is phase 3. So most organizations will be in phase 1, with a few creeping into phase 2, but phase 3 is really the frontier firm. Okay, the research also came up with this particular stat here. So this reveals that 82% of leaders are actually confident about using digital labour to expand the workforce capacity within the next 12 to 18 months. So that's very near term. So that statistic is from the Microsoft Work Trend survey sample, and it really underscores the growing trust in AI and automation to enhance productivity and scale operations without proportionally increasing headcount. What does this mean for businesses? It means that businesses can leverage this intelligence in the form of digital employees or agents. And we see business leaders are really thinking about this. They're thinking about how they will do that. And if they haven't already, they're going to be investing in agents. Okay, so one of the things the survey talked about was this sort of key differences between the traditional org chart and then the next gen of that, which are work charts. So hopefully this explains what those are. So an org chart, traditional org chart has a chain of command. Everything kind of hierarchies up to the CEO at the top. It's built around departments. So sales department, HR department, IT department, finance department, project management department. The boss decides what gets done. So the manager of those functions sets the strategy, the agenda, and then that flows through. And knowledge does kind of tend to stay in those departments, doesn't it? Like, often you have, poor communication between the different departments because they've really got a handoff between each other. And it's really designed around people's roles. Work charts, on the other hand, though, these are teams that form and change as needed. So, for example, it's built around the jobs that need doing at that time. And, that might be for 3 months, or it might be a year, or it could be shorter as well. The results matter more than the process. So it's about what the team is achieving, and knowledge, so be that human and AI, flows freely within this work chart. Also, one of the other key differences here is it's designed for people and AI working together. So what does that look like, Hils? Still don't really kind of get how a work chart works. Okay, let's have a look at really painting the picture of what that looks like. So here I've got a picture of a traditional org chart. So you will be familiar with this. You've got the CEO at the top, some departments underneath. Those departments are doing some work and they're handing off between each other. But it's departmental silos. You do tend to get handoff problems. And actually from a customer perspective, it's actually really fragmented. When you've been speaking with the finance department and then the operations team doesn't know what your discussions were previously, that's the traditional org chart. The frontier firm work chart is completely different. There is strategic leadership at the top, but it's really, really centered around the customer. What does the customer need? It starts to look at these sort of customer journeys that go on, and then the work or the teams under that are placed under those journeys. So, you might have sort of an acquisition team their journey team, they're all about acquiring customers. You might have an onboarding team and human and AI teammates working within that. But actually the expertise pool, be it human or AI, is interchangeable in those silos. So what's quite interesting about that is that when you join a company, you might start in a role but not finish in that role at all. And actually, when you sign up to a business, you have to sign up to be much more flexible. Like maybe you joined a company to do HR and you wanted to be in the HR team and you wanted to be doing organisational change. And so you've signed this contract with the company, both in paper, but also a psychological contract is that is what you'd be doing. In a frontier firm, it's a completely different psychological contract, isn't it? Because you don't necessarily know who your boss is going to be, because that could change, who your teammates are, because that could change. And actually, the thing you're doing might be changing as well, depending on what customer journey or what kind of process you're sitting in within the organization. So I think that's really super interesting. Very interesting. Okay, now when I talk about agents doing things, like what does that look like? I hope this chart helps to make a bit of sense around that. So you might have an agent who is doing an activity. So we'll start on the left. So a digital agent that can automate something, some kind of activity, and change one activity. So, for example, the facilitator who I talked about in Teams meeting, who helps managers meetings, might be optimizing a project plan. So maybe there's a project management agent whose job is that, or creating requirements. It's a requirements agent, and all they do is they know how to make really, really good requirements, and so that's what they're doing. So that's AI within an activity. The next one is AI within a process. So this is where you start to get more than one agent doing something. So digital agents are implemented to optimize an end-to-end process or journey. Maybe it's making full detailed requirements, or conducting a unit test from beginning to end, or deploying an application, doing the whole process. And then there's a number of agents who are working with each other and handing off one to the other until it's done. But it's following a process. The next type of AI and automation that we'll see is for roles. So you might have several digital agents collaborating to fully transform a role. So for example, you might have agents who are project managers, or maybe they're a QA analyst, a quality assurance analyst, and they're doing all of that work, or a software engineer, the juniors. Anyway, we are seeing this happen within those roles right now. It's whole roles that agents will be able to do on behalf of us. And the most mature, the biggest, if you like, is AI agents working within functions. So many digital agents working together to fully transform a function. So digital agents becoming the norm. So this might be a whole project management function, or a whole quality assurance function. So you can think of this as kind of from simple to more complex: activity, process, role, and then at the more complex, taking over whole functions. So what does becoming frontier look like? So at Microsoft, we talk a lot about these 4 pillars, and they're really, in some ways, they're actually a technology strategy that you could use for your company. So the first pillar is about enriching employee experiences. The second is reinventing customer engagement. The third is all the things you might do to reshape your business process, with reshape being the key word there. And the last is, how's an organization you're bending the curve on innovation? I actually really love this as a technology strategy structure. And so there's things here that Microsoft as customer zero has done themselves in each of these pillars. So for example, in terms of enriching employee experiences, well, for us, that was giving every seller an M365 Copilot license. It was a no-brainer. But when we did it 2 years ago, that was incredibly expensive, because that was when we were the most GPU constrained. So we had to make the decision to do it, and that's why we gave it to the sellers. Look, in terms of Copilot, everyone will find their own way with it. You'll discover efficiencies and functionality that works best for you. The key is getting your people to use AI, getting them to use something like a Copilot. It takes real focus, change management, constant. It's always on. You can't just run a 6-week program and then leave it. Like, you literally have to do something every week, every month, to encourage people to adopt. And at Microsoft, we've got up around 75% daily active use across our seller base, which I actually think is not that great. I think we could be doing a lot better. But it just goes to show, even a company who's been on the road for 2 years, still needs to keep going, still needs to encourage their people to use AI. The impact that Microsoft has seen, however, from people consistently using Copilot is that we get 10% higher revenue per head. So there's real business benefits. And the efficiencies show up in different ways, of course, but the common thread is the sellers are taking time and toil out of the system so they can spend more time opening pipeline. Okay, but just because we're spending less time preparing and creating materials and making slides and writing recaps, basically what that means is Copilot takes a lot of that work out of our process, and that's what it looks like for us: more time selling, less time on admin, and then faster deal closure. That is how we enrich the employee experience. Okay, next, reinventing the customer engagement. So here we really transformed our contact center. It all started about 3.5 years ago. We were kicking off our contact center transformation journey, and our contact center is huge, right? Spanning, everything Microsoft, from Azure, consumer, Windows, Xbox, it's the whole thing. So handling around 70 million tickets a year. And last year was a really great milestone for Microsoft. And for the first time, the owner of our contact center told the CFO, you can take 480 million out of my bottom line. I'll save that through AI transformation. So that was a pretty incredible result. What made it possible? Well, it wasn't one technology, actually. It was a combination of solutions and years of committed change management. You might remember we acquired Nuance, which is the voice dictation software, and we moved all contact center as a service capabilities across the business. We deployed independent agents for specific tasks. We're now running multi-agent systems that can continuously learn and improve. So this kind of stuff doesn't happen overnight. But so here's how it works. Basically, an agent monitors when a customer can't self-serve, and then that triggers an analysis. Why didn't the bot solve it? Okay, then the system reviews how the agent resolved it, checks documentation, and asks, can we rewrite the content? Is something missing? And if needed, new content is created. The solution is fed back into the system. So the next time the issue comes up, hopefully it can be resolved first time. So it's actually a fully agentic learning loop, driving continuous improvement and closing gaps in the real world. And the impact? Well, it hasn't always been super smooth sailing, but in general, customer satisfaction is up because people are getting what they want faster. And customers spend less time waiting for an agent, which is, what every customer loves waiting for an agent. No, they don't. Most customers prefer self-service actually now, and now they can. And there's been a massive improvement in this area, but it did take years of deep committed change to make it happen. All right, so how did we reshape our business processes? Okay, so we're now at that stage of shaping processes and deciding what becomes an agent versus what becomes an assistant. So there's a real balance here that we're making between kind of carrot and stick. So let's say, I don't know, maybe Microsoft leadership says to the sellers, this is the go-to-market strategy, but sellers aren't following it. Okay, so then there's a decision that Microsoft have to make. Are we going to automate the process so there's no choice for the sellers so that the routing happens automatically, or are we going to provide tooling to troubleshoot and guide sellers more efficiently? And so that's the type of thing they're looking at when they're changing their internal sales processes. Okay, bend the curve on innovation. It's such a cool pillar, but actually really hard for organizations to work out, well, what does that actually mean? So bend the curve on innovation is, as a technology company, what is the thing you can do the most that's going to impact your business? And so for us at Microsoft, that was all about coding. The easiest lever for us has been empowering developers. So every developer now has GitHub Copilot. No surprises there. But the impact has been at scale. So Satya often shares the stat that 30% of all code we ship is written by AI. And this means we're shipping products faster than ever before. And then beyond Copilot, beyond coding, GitHub Copilot really shines on the edges as well, because it's doing documentation and Q&A. And you can even assign bugs to the GitHub coding agent, and it will autonomously fix them and submit the pull request. It's amazing. So it's really powerful for our foundational work. For other companies, that's going to look completely different, right? If you're not a software company. For example, in the medical area, this is where, you know, we have AI and agents solving diseases, curing cancer, or making incredible medicines that, you know, improve the health of people. This is actually getting research done that has an impact on humans. That might be what bending the curve on innovation is. And so why would you do all this? Why would you think about coming Frontier? Well, this is actually a graph from our annual report. It's quite powerful because it's saying that we've been transforming, but as we've been transforming with agents, our employee count has stayed relatively flat. The employee count is that purple line there. You can see from 2022 through to 2025, really, really flat. Yes, we have increased our CapEx, like a lot. We are building a lot of data centers. But you can see that there's this increase in net income, which is that green line up by the purple one. And we experienced that just after 2023. So the results kind of speak for themselves. Okay, so being Frontier is a thing. Okay, Hilary, I need to think about what that means for my organization as a business leader. This agent thing sounds pretty out of control. How are we going to manage all of that? Well, the Microsoft perspective is that with all these agents and agent teams and agent bosses, and there's going to be a lot of them. Like there's going to be hundreds, maybe even millions that, you know, you'll be interacting with, or that your employees are going to have to manage. So for us, the control plane for all of that has to be something like Copilot. So all of these agents will be surfaced through Copilot, and then that will be basically the dashboard for how you'll manage agents. So Copilot is for your people, and the agents are for processes. And so Copilot is really important because it's our agent orchestration layer, how we control agents through the Copilot control system, because of course we will soon be all agent bosses. I put this last picture in here because I was kind of like, what does it mean? What is an agent boss? So I went into my Copilot, went to create, and asked it to create me an image to finish off this presentation of what does it look like when an agent boss is actually working. It made this image for me. So you've got like a Copilot dashboard, maybe. This is not real Microsoft tech. This is AI that I just made up, said, what does an agent boss look like? What does it look like, that role? And so you can see the guy on screen, he's got a number of agents working for him. Some are active, some are not. Some have completed their work. Some are still in progress. He's looking at how much code's been generated, the market analysis. So basically, this is the intelligence on tap that I think the report is talking about. You know, all of this information so that you can make decisions about what to do next and how to move things forward. So it's pretty exciting. So that's it, team. That is what is a Frontier firm and how's it changing work. Hopefully that's created a good picture to help you make some decisions within your business and really understand, what does a Frontier firm look like? Until next time, bye.